On this edition of Motorcycle Experience, my riding buddy Norm Wells and I ride east out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and wind up stealing home plate. Then, during this week's Red Adventure, former professional road racer turned expert enduro rider Tony Sharpless looks at your Under Armour. And speaking of body protection, our resident riding instructor Clinton Smelt will stop by later to discuss the riding shoulder seasons. Plus, motorcycle journalist Colin Fraser will roll up some great advice on shopping for a used set of wheels, while looking back at a 2007 Harley-Davidson Night Rod. All this and more on Motorcycle Experience. Hello and welcome to Motorcycle Experience, the voice of motorcyclists everywhere. I'm Dave Hatch, and this week we'll kick off our show by sampling a brand new motorcycle that will have your friends asking, hey, where'd you get the nicely restored Triumph? Behold, Triumph Motorcycle's stunning tribute to Britain's classic cafe racers of the 1960s, the Triumph Thruxton. This striking motorcycle, with its retro styling and classic paint scheme, the low and narrow ace handlebars, and twin instrument pods, truly is a time machine. Seriously, on several occasions during the time I spent getting to know the Thruxton, I was approached by onlookers at gas stations who asked me, hey, where did you get the beautifully restored Triumph? It was kind of fun, actually. Triumph achieves this retro effect by starting with a simple tubular frame that cradles an 865cc air-cooled, fuel-injected, dual overhead cam parallel twin engine that cranks out a claimed 69 horsepower. As far as the stopping power is concerned, the Triumph Thruxton is fitted with a big 320mm single disc up front and a rear single 255mm disc out back. Overall, it's a very nice balanced piece, and it certainly looks like it can top the ton and race out to a local calf for a cupper. But how does it work in today's world of 100km speed-rated highways and Starbucks Express drive-thrus? Well, here's what Mark Russell had to say after a day in the saddle.
So I know if I said first impression for me personally, I would say, wow, talk about nailing a look. What was your first impression this morning?
Yeah, this bike has absolutely everything right visually, and every little trick. I remember these bikes from the day, and they didn't come like this back in the late 60s or early 70s. You bought a standard bike and then you put these bars on it, you put the bar ends, mirrors on, you put the little fairing around the headlight and the cap for the, all that stuff you had to buy. So, yeah. And that was what you wanted. This is the look. And of all the standard bikes out on the market now, this is the one that has everything right about the way it looks.
Yeah. And
the way it looks riding down the road is pretty cool too.
You fired it up, but you had to use a choke this morning.
Yeah. I haven't done that in decades.
Yeah, and the feel was all correct?
Yeah, well, it's a little better than correct, because this is a modern motor. I mean, it's an old school design, but it's modern, so it's smooth, it fires up fairly easily. Yeah, there's a manual choke. I forgot. I couldn't figure out why is it not staying running.
Yeah.
You got to pull out the choke in the morning and fire it up. It's a cool little touch to the old school. The key is down there by the turn signal. It's not up on the dash. And you know, they could have put it wherever they want, but they put it in the right place. That's where it belongs on a bike like this. So it warmed up pretty easily and off we went, and it rode nice. I haven't ridden a bike like this for such a long time, and compared to a modern sport bike, everything about it is easier to do. Like in a modern sport bike, you're in an uncomfortable position for riding slow around town. The motor's way too high strung to cruise along in any gear. Any gear you're in is probably not the right gear, whereas this one, any gear you're in, it kind of doesn't matter. Just open the throttle and keep going.
Did you like the brakes?
Yeah, so the brakes are good. It's a single front disc, so that seemed to be enough. It's a heavier bike than a lightweight, super bike, but that's enough brake. It's a really hefty fork too, so it's firm up there. There's ABS, and we actually rode in the rain today. I didn't have a chance to feel whether that was working or not, although it was comforting to know that that was a part of the system. I could use the back brake, and if you use that too much in the rain, it'll it'll lock, but not on this bike. So yeah, they're good, excellent.
Bar-mounted mirrors, very limited switchgear, 2 gauges, old school. What did you think?
Well, it was exactly the way I expected it to look. You know, a speedo and a tack, handlebars, and a couple of, I didn't have to figure out how to work anything. I got on it and started riding. There are several aspects of this bike I thought were really nicely done. Like the bar end mirrors aren't some cheap thing that you bought and hammered into the end of the bar. They're sort of nicely sculpted and crafted. The wheels are aluminum rims with, you know, good old-fashioned steel spokes laced into them, so that's a nice touch.
The way they should be?
Yep. The little cap on the seat, which is what makes the look, to a large degree for me, that makes it a cafe racer, is nicely handled. There's an actual seat underneath there, and one of the tools underneath there, the Allen key, will pop that off, and you can bring your passenger for a little ride or a long ride. It's all kind of what the way you expect it to be, but nicely glued together. And English bikes were never known to be put together well.
Yeah. So in terms of nostalgia, did this satisfy your thirst for the old days?
Yeah, it did, and it did it without ruining it, which is kind of important, because I think if I rode a 40-year-old motorcycle, I'd walk up to it thinking, wow, I can't wait to do this. And then I'd ride it thinking, this is a horrible, old, ancient piece of farm equipment. Whereas this was nice to ride. I had all the right feelings walking up to it. I look at it and I think, yeah, that's a real motorcycle. And when I rode it, it functioned the way I remember in my distorted memory that it was supposed to work. And it was fun. It was easy to do and enjoyable.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you had fun today, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dave.
Good job.
Really enjoyed it.
Hang in there, we've got plenty more experience still ahead. Next, expert off-road rider Tony Sharpless takes a closer look under the hood, while Norm Wells and I slide into home plate for a bite of lunch. Portions of Motorcycle Experience are brought to you by Honda Canada, BMW Motorrad, and Olympia Motorsports. Closed captioning of Motorcycle Experience is brought to you by TELUS Ride for Dad. Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch. It's time now to look in on this week's Ultimate Ride. Today, Norm and I are midway through day 2, and we've worked up quite an appetite riding through the Valley of Fire. So our ultimate ride this season has Norm and I spending a few days and evenings in and around what is often referred to as the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. The loose plan for this trip was to ride out of Sin City into the desert in a different direction each day. All we needed to execute this task with some degree of accuracy was a map. After stopping at 2 gas stations on day 1 and another 2 the following morning, we failed miserably in our efforts to secure a map of the surrounding area. So as we rode east into the desert on Highway 167 on day 2 into our ultimate ride, we promptly got lost and managed somehow to ride along both sides of Lake Mead before eventually getting our bearings and reaching our destination, the oldest national park in Nevada, the Valley of Fire. After exploring the park for a couple of hours, we discovered that we had worked up a serious appetite, what with getting lost and all, so we headed off in search of sugars. Well, Norm, here we are midway through day 2 in our ultimate ride, Las Vegas, baby. And we're in Overton, and we just had the most amazing lunch at Sugar's. So maybe we should talk a little bit about how we found out about Sugar's.
Well, again, when we were at Eagle Rider yesterday morning, he told us about a couple of roads, and he said, but if you come up in this area, after you go through the Valley of Fire, you got to go to Overton and eat at Sugar's. This is apparently a motorcycle mecca during the season. The parking lot's full of bikes all the time, so if you're in the area, Sugar's is the place.
Yeah, and it's definitely old school. It's got the old banquettes, and but the food was great. We're stuffed.
Sleeping soon.
Now, you mentioned the Valley of Fire, and we have just literally rode through there, and words can't describe it. Spectacular, eh? It was just an amazing piece of road.
Absolutely,
amazing
yeah.
scenery.
Yeah. And last time I did it in the car. And I said, you know, one day I got to come back here and do this on a motorcycle on a sunny day, and we just hit everything right. The weather came up, temperature came up, and it's just so beautiful in there.
Yeah.
It never ends.
So we're now at about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was just a ribbon, you know, a very narrow road, super smooth. The speed limit was, I believe, 35 miles an hour for the most part, but that was okay because it was just so scenic. You just wanted to pay attention both to the road, but also to just soak in the scenery and the photo ops.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking through there as well, because when I did do it in the car, I was going a little bit quicker because I was the only guy out there. But no, definitely on the bike, it was interesting because you could take the time to look around and not have to focus too much on the road.
Yeah. So this strategy of being based in Las Vegas, riding our first loop of the tour, so far has really paid off because we're really only about, 2.5 hours from Las Vegas at this point, you figure?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Through any of the loops we're going to do this week, that's about the furthest we get out, and you're just going to continuously see amazing things every day.
Yeah, so you're not going to want to bite off too much because we're stopping a lot to take photographs, and this really is a camera opportunity. So we're not going to bite off too much for the remainder of the day, but you do have your heart set on the next, about 45 minutes up the road?
Up to Coyote Creek, and then just a couple of miles south of Coyote Creek, there's a road called Mormon Well, and it's an old trail that they use going westwards. And it's dirt. It's a dirt trail. And that's why I said we're going to get into a little bit of adventure on this trip.
Right.
But that's a day trip on its own. So we'll go in as far as we can. But spectacular. Again, the adventure bikes will take you areas that you'll never get to if you're here in a car.
Right. Well, that's good. We got 45 minutes to let lunch settle before we get into some hard riding. But so far, man, a wonderful ultimate ride.
Absolutely awesome.
Next week, be sure to tune in as Norm and I continue to head north through the Mopa Valley. Now let's turn our attention to Tony Sharpless and find out just what exactly is under the hood.
So Tony, I'm really sorry to have done this to you, but last week when we were talking about our adventure sport, adventure riding segments, I said, can you bring a little bit of your underwear?
No.
Your under gear.
My husband's going to be mortified. I'm going to be showing my underwear on TV.
This is the real deal. You
Yeah.
actually brought it. Now,
That's right.
This is what you wear underneath your suit.
Yes. This is when you're doing aggressive off-road riding. You want to have, first of all, you want to have breathability and protection. So.
Right.
I'm always looking for something that'll wick away the sweat so that you don't overheat when you're riding, because riding off-road you're using a lot more energy than you are when you're riding on-road.
Right.
So you want to be able to have, you want to layer up with some good products that have some breathability, like mesh panels on the back here, and it wicks away the sweat.
Right. Okay.
Then on top of that, then you want to wear your protection, and the protection should be breathable as well. So the one that I chose is one that has the back protector, the shoulder protection, elbows, forearms, and the front chest protector all in one. So I can just put this on like a jacket,
Right.
zip it up, and then I'm good to go.
Right.
And then underneath, on the bottom, I like to wear something that has some actual hard plastic on it. So you can buy shorts that have, compression shorts actually, that have padding there. But I found that the hard plastic is really, especially if you're riding in rocks.
Yeah.
Padding is good. It can be hot kind of at times too, but the plastic I find works well for me. And then the chamois crotch, so that again you're comfortable, especially if you're riding all day. A lot of people stand up, but it depends on the terrain. You might be sitting a lot too.
Right.
And on your knees, down on your knees, I like to wear some knee and shin guards if your pants don't have them. So you can fall over and just get back up and pick up your bike and go again. So you don't have to worry about calling 911. So this is my 911 package.
Very nice. Well done. And thanks for agreeing to bring along your underwear. Thank you. No, this is great.
You're welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Tony.
Still ahead, some sound advice on shopping for a used motorcycle. And on Shifting Gears with Clinton Smout, we examine just what it takes to extend your riding season.
Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and you know, it's still a little chilly down here on the Picton Harbor. I noticed they've only put a few of the boats in. Anyway, speaking of the shoulder season, that's our subject this week with Clinton Smout on Shifting Gears. So Clinton, last week on Shifting Gears, we were talking about the importance of comfort when you're looking at your first long distance adventure. But we didn't get into any of the sort of new bells and whistles in terms of keeping warm, electronics. So let's discuss that for a moment. This bike has an outlet, so you can actually plug in your GPS, you can plug in your heated vest.
Exactly.
And some systems now you can actually have heated gloves plugged into your heated jacket. It's amazing what's available to you in terms of extending your riding season and extending your tour.
Well, this time of year, I rode in this morning, it was really cold. And of course, all my good, warm, and electric gear was here at work.
That's right.
Not at home.
Yeah.
But you're right, Dave. You can really extend and start earlier in the morning, either spring or fall temperatures, get more out of the riding season if you're properly equipped. But especially long distance. If you plan on doing successive days in the saddle and you just have your jacket, blue jeans, summer gloves, it's just too hard. You're gonna freeze.
Yeah. And if you're riding in mountains, if you're anywhere there's elevation,
huge difference.
You can go from 3 degrees to 18 in a matter of 20K.
Exactly.
You know, we talk about what to do in terms of the gear. We don't talk about why, like what we're protecting ourselves from, which is obviously you can get hypothermia, right?
Oh, big time. Exposure, long-term exposure to the wind. Like we're standing now, it's a beautiful day, but you get out at highway speeds for hour after hour, that will, if your body core, Dave, drops even half a degree of temperature, your nervous system will start shaking. Yeah. That's trying to generate some heat. So you always lose heat at extremities. Kneecaps, we've all had that. Your hands, a neck, so something that covers your neck. Good gloves that go on top of the cuffs so you don't billow out like the Michelin Man.
Yeah.
And good pants to keep everybody warm.
Yeah.
On a long-term motorcycle ride, not a good idea to really push your limits with distance.
Yeah. So some great advice there, and obviously be aware that if you're sort of losing it, you're not really fully on the game, it's time to pull over.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why passengers are great, because they may be more aware of it than you are, or riding partners.
Right. Some great advice on long distance adventures.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Alrighty then, now that we've got you all set for another extended season, stay tuned because next, Inside Motorcycles senior editor Colin Fraser has some great advice on shopping for a used motorcycle. Stay with us. Portions of Motorcycle Experience are brought to you by Honda Canada, BMW Motorrad, and Olympia Motorsports. Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and we'll wrap up our show now by stepping back into the time machine and traveling all the way back to 2007, the year when we sampled Harley-Davidson's low and menacing Night Rod with its Porsche-designed liquid-cooled V-twin engine. But before we do that, let's pay a visit to the used section at our local motorcycle dealership to get some sound advice on shopping for a previously loved motorcycle. Joining us now is veteran motorcycle journalist Colin Fraser.
So Colin, this week in the Used Bike Corner, we've been talking all along about shopping for used motorcycles, what to look for. You said this week you got to talk about sitting on the motorcycle. Why is it important to sit on a motorcycle when you're shopping?
For whatever reason, people like to sit on bikes just to see if somehow they think it's going to be comfortable. I don't think you can really tell sitting still, but when you sit on the bike, you can start actuating everything to do with the bike and see what it feels like. So literally, is the clutch pull smooth? Does the brake feel like it's bled properly? Are the levers straight? Are the clip-ons, are the bars straight? Are the mirrors dinged or mismatched or scratched or whatever? Bike probably has had some adventures, may have tipped over at some point, but you want to know it was repaired correctly and it's safe and it's going to get you through your certification, right, for your new bike ownership and new to you. So all those little things take a little bit of time, and if the person who's selling it to you gets nervous, then you're probably pretty close to finding a problem.
Excellent advice. This week we're looking at a 2007 Harley-Davidson Night Rod. Do you remember that motorcycle?
Well, I remember we did a big shootout with Inside Motorcycles and the show, and I think we went to the airport out in the county, and everybody really liked that bike, particularly liked the power plant. That Porsche design, liquid cooled, very sophisticated twin is a great engine. Styling, not everybody likes. It's not a traditional Harley. I think it's a great motorcycle. There's a lot of value there, but it was and still remains a controversial bike. This particular version with the foot controls forward is a little more traditional cruiser, and I like the blackout look a lot in terms of the appearance of the engine.
Yeah, for sure. That engine, I still to this day love that motor. Anyway, back in 2007, as you said, we road tested it, and you can pick one up now for roughly $14,000, $15,000 Canadian dollars certified, depending on condition. But this is what we thought of that motorcycle back in 2007.
It's time now to throw a leg over Harley-Davidson's newest spin on their liquid-cooled V-Rod platform, the Night Rod Special. Providing the nighttime rumble is basically the same 1,130cc fuel-injected 60-degree V-twin as the V-Rod. But how does the Night Rod work as an overall package? Well, that's the question we put to one of Canada's premier custom bike builders, Mr. Bob McKay.
So Bob, after retiring as a longtime Harley dealer, and I know you're a big fan of the air-cooled V-twins, I thought it'd be great to put you on one of these newfangled liquid-cooled fuel-injected cruisers and get your first impression. So what did you think?
I'm pretty impressed. Actually, it's a second impression, as when I was still a dealer, this bike was introduced. And I wasn't that impressed, to be perfectly truthful. Being an old days rider, it was new technology, and I found it a little bit out of the way for Harley to do something like that.
Yep.
But then I've been away from them for a couple of years. So I was kind of prepared to pick holes in this bike.
Yep.
I can't pick one hole in this bike. There's power everywhere. I think this bike, they tell me, is 120 horsepower. It feels every bit of that.
Yep.
At any gear, 2,500, 3,000 RPM, when you crank it, like, it's amazing what's there. The visual appearance of a motorcycle is so, so important. This has got the look. And when you put with that, the horsepower and the torque, I can't pick a hole in it. Like I say, I was hoping I could find some problems, but I just didn't find anything. I really enjoy the bike. I have a number of Harleys, but I think maybe I should buy one of these too.
Ooh, coming from you,
And
that's a compliment.
Hey, I would have never thought I would have said it, but it's, I think one of these in my garage would be pretty sweet, really.
Well, that's it for this week's program, folks. We're all out of time, but before we leave, I just want to remind you, this coming June 11th, I'll be up in Whitehorse hosting their Tell Us Ride for Dad. Now, if you can join us up there, that would be great. If you can't, go to the Tell Us Ride for Dad website and see if there's a ride going on in your community. It would be really great if you could help us out in the fight against prostate cancer. So till next week, keep your feet on the pegs and your right hand crank. Bye for now.